Alrighty guys, as you keep bringing into the Dragon Ball Legends ToP walkthrough, or guide video, not a walkthrough video. The walkthrough video will come out later on once we do get the TP. We're going back to two-parters and stuff like that, but this is going to be covering ToP Season 37. Before we continue, there will always be timestamps in the description down below. Alright, so going in with the intro, I suppose, we ranked at 584 with the girls team last season, right, which is phenomenal. I think that's the best we've done in a long time, especially considering that this was where ToP kind of got flipped up on its head and stuff like that. I think that's really good, right? And considering that we died twice here, I think it is very, I think that's meta. Honestly, I think I would go as far as to say is that dying is just straight up meta. We had very minimal friendship rank, and it felt like we were just getting farmed by the board, but in reality it was actually the inverse, right? We actually did really good, right? Full Z tier teams is definitely the move. And remember to just die instead of using a heal tile or a yellow tile, because it almost feels like the win streak bonus is no longer a make it or break it, at least not for now. Alright, so the first thing that we always get into is our pathing right here. So once again, I'm going to go ahead and try to make the easiest path possible, right, with avoiding as many Sun family fights as possible. I believe that there is only one Sun family fight that you guys do have to go up against, and I mean, that sucks, right? You probably are going to take a lot of damage. You probably are going to be taking a super attack from that, but I think it's still better this way, right? It's still better to go ahead and just only face off against one of them, and then try to go for the easiest fights possible throughout the rest of the board, right? As long as you finish the board, you have the full 120% boost from all your Z tier units, you are 100% going to be fine. The circled fights are definitely the win streak bonuses and stuff like that, but this is what we have right here. If I feel like there has to be any change to this, it will be in the walkthrough video itself, right? If I feel like I have to deviate from the pathing. Alright, so now we can go ahead and get into our tips and tricks. So the first tricky fight that you run into is Sun family, right? This is the only Sun family fight within our pathing and stuff like that. So personally, we will be gunning for Kaioken Goku first, right? Because I'm pretty sure that that is the only unit in which I will be able to avoid a super attack from. I would suggest not bringing in a purple unit to this fight at all. You probably are going to get hit by a Goten super attack, and you do not want to take all that by a purple unit if you do bring in a purple unit. Regen is also going to be super annoying here, right? I think there's only one of these teams, right? But there's another regeneration team further down the line where it's kind of similar to this right here, right? But this team specifically, it has 4 healers on it, right? Making it super defensive. But definitely one of the main threats here is going to be Legends Limited Piccolo, due to him gaining that super attack on turn 3, the guaranteed one, right? As for the rest of the attack order, it's going to depend on your own attack order, like depending on your own team, depending on your own key restore speeds, which is going to go hand in hand with your own friendship ranks, right? That's why I'm going to be giving you guys the teams earlier, that way you can immediately start working on those friendship ranks, right? Because the friendship ranks, the higher, if your friendship rank is at 10, then your key restore speed is going to reflect that as well. And there are a couple of these fights as well sprinkled in there that do include Legends Limited Piccolo, who we just talked about, and the Green 21. So this may be risky depending on your team, but try to take out Green 21 first and then the Legends Limited Piccolo, right? I only say it's risky due to the teams that are currently meta. They're not necessarily the best units in the games that designed for ToP, right? But they're the best units to go ahead and garnish those points. But anyways, Green 21 can stun on turn 2 with their Solar Flare, which is something that you do want to avoid, right? That way you want to go ahead and target her first throughout the first turn, get her out of the way so she can't get that off, and then hopefully throughout turn 2 you guys will be able to just burst or finish off the Legends Limited Piccolo before you move into turn 3, in which he will inevitably super attack. There are also some of these stages as well. You guys are already very familiar with that, hopefully, at this point in time. I will always tell you guys, make sure to kill the yellow Gohan first before he supers you per defeated ally. You do not want that at all. Another notable mention here, I suppose, is the Green Beerus, who can inflict you with can attack at the start of turn 2. So if you do have like super attack stacked up, you plan out this stage. I mean, it's obviously going to be a little bit tricky to do so, but if you do find yourself in a situation where you're confident in taking out that Gohan within your first couple of units, then maybe go for Beerus afterwards, right? Because Beerus is going, if you can get Beerus out of the way before he gets that stun off, you're going to get through this very, very easily. So there's also this fight right here, another regeneration fight, which is fairly new to us, right? But generally you want to outspeed Bootanks, right? And then go for Legends Limited Piccolo here. This is still annoying because there's healers, right? Because obviously you have Super Baby 2, you have the Fat Boo, and you also have the Green Piccolo, who can perform a cover change if you do end up using a super attack here. But you do want to take out the Boo tanks first, and then you do want to take out the Legendary Piccolo, obviously, because those two can get guaranteed super attacks. So for Boo tanks, the key restore speed that you need to outspeed him is it has to be above 2,476. So do keep that in mind. Again, friendship rank is important here. Friendship rank is your friend. Alright, and then the last fight that I wanted to go ahead and talk about here is this one. This is one that we also encountered in the last board as well. Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken, he gets targeted first, right? He gets that super attack at the start of turn 2, and he has a relatively high key restore speed, right? And then you also want to swap from Blast to Strikes to avoid a possible super attack from Full Power Frieza, right? Because if you attack Full Power Frieza with a Blast card, he is going to be able to activate his trap card, essentially like his green card, right? He'll avoid the blast card, he'll mitigate that damage, and then he'll get 100% to a special move gauge, allowing him to get that super attack off. So again, the way to do this for the basically swap strategies here, right? So next to your little avatar right here at the bottom next to the HP, you're going to be able to click on this little strike icon right here, and you can swap it over to blast. In our case and scenario, we want to swap it from blast over to strikes. It's as easy as that. Alright, so now let's go ahead and talk about our top teams right here. So we will be using regeneration. I'm thinking about using this setup right here. I'm not completely set in stone on this, but it is going to look like this, right? I'm not going to go too in depth on the strat of this team, right? This is team building in this game mode is in a very weird position right now. It's mostly throw together whatever Z tier units you have right now that at a high stars, right? But very notably, we do have Yellow Piccolo, who is a healer, right? Specifically, he heals 5 positions in your board right here, right? You see all the highlighted spots right there in the top left, top right, his tile himself, bottom left and bottom right. He's going to be able to heal in those tiles. That's why he's going to be very important to this run, right? And so when you look at this team, and if you need replacements, I would say look firstly in Z tier, and not only in Z tier, you want to look at Z tier and you want to filter it by key restore speeds like I do have right here, right? Because key restore speeds are going to be held in a very high regard, especially because you're not necessarily relying on kits anymore, right? You're not going to be getting carried by your kits. You want to have just naturally high key restore speed and just naturally like good units that can basically like just force your way through the board at this point in time, right? Because these units are very, very lackluster. I would say this cell is actually really good too. Just because the board wide debuff. Look at this. Started the battle, all enemies plus 20% to damage received. I think that is extremely good. But yeah, if you don't find a unit in Z tier, then go on to S tier and look for a unit here. Right, obviously in the right hand side of the screen right here, you do see this guy opts to bring in this EXL Zenkai, which is, he's still good, right? Because he has a buff against Saiyans, right? Which is like a dime a dozen. It's against androids as well. There are a couple of androids there, but he also has a solar flare, right? Which he can inflict can attack for 1 turn at the start of turn 2, so he does have damage mitigation there as well. You actually see me bringing in this baby Vegeta on my bench. I'm probably not going to be using him too often, but he will be on the bench right here. He is very, very solid, and he's in S tier, so I think he actually is worth bringing in for your team right here, right? Because he restores his own health by 3%. He also has a lot of support going on, and remember, there was a fight in there that did include the Boo tanks, who has somewhat of a decent key restore speed, and so by me having this green baby Vegeta, that's kind of like my insurance against him. Alright, so next we have the current top team, which is all Z tier as well, right? So the last team was pretty much all Z tier, 1 unit being in S tier. This team is all Z tier right here, and it kind of looks all over the place, but it is kind of comprised of regeneration. Again, most notably, you do have Yellow Piccolo as your healer right here in this middle slot, being able to go ahead and fulfill all those healing tiles, right? And Red Turles. So I do not have Red Turles, that's why you don't see him on my side of the things right here. If I could pull up his kit right here, conveniently I would, but basically what he does is he heals himself, he has self-sustain, and he provides debuffs as well. So he's running double debuffs because he also has this perfect cell right here, who we just talked about having the board wide debuffs right here, right? I don't think this team is that realistic of using without that Red Turles. That's how good that Red Turles is right here too, right? And you also have this Krillin, which is interesting. I don't know, I'm actually curious how often he brings in this Krillin right here, right? Because I guess he does have the Zenkai stats and stuff like that. He has support, but he also has the Solar Flare. I think a lot of people are really valuing this ability right here, and in which you can inflict can attack, right? I think that's just a very solid ability just in general. So there, and he also cancels attribute upgrades, which is another plus. Alright, so next we have to give a shout out to the homie Battle More, staying true to the ladies, but I do have to say that Blue Kale is probably the most important component to this team, and she is needed. Plus you need stars as well. I mean, all the teams need stars here, but like, look at my sparking, for whatever reason, my girls don't have red stars on it. Like my blue Bulma doesn't have red stars, my green Chi-Chi doesn't have red stars. It's pretty much just the EXs right here. Well, the older EXs at least, but this Kale, just the fact that she heals, right, at the end of the turn, right, that's every turn, I mean, not, well, it's not every, at the end of the turn, allies in range, you restore health by 2%, and that activates 2 times, right? So you have a good radius of that too as well. That's 4 blocks that you're going to be able to get that healing off right here, as well as buffing the damage for your girls' units. My Kale is only at 3 stars. Now, if some of you guys have actually told me like 3 stars is still viable for this Kale, it's still viable. Maybe, but I don't really want to go ahead and test it out. I still would feel more comfortable with some more stars on it right here, right? And then Battlemore is also rocking the rival universe units on the backup right here, also at a good amount of stars, which I do not possess for those units specifically. And those units are good on the bench right there, but you have to keep in mind, once they do come onto the playing field, they're not really going to be getting buffed in terms of Z abilities. All right, next team that we have is GT. So my favorite unit here definitely has to be the Green Baby Vegeta, who is actually S tier, but is such an amazing unit that I do believe it is worth bringing him in, which is why we are going to be putting him on the bench for our very own regeneration team. Both of the Rildos here are really good here as well, right? This red Rildo, he is in Z tier, right? He's a sparking unit, so he does have the quote-unquote sparking stats. He does have a buff for your allies in range, and he restores his own health by 2%. Having self-sustain in this current meta is so damn important. He also inflicts heavy bleed, which is kind of a nice thing. But you also have this yellow Rildo, who has a very interesting ability. I've talked about this guy before actually on previous guide videos. Is before receiving a special move arts attack, like a blue card, right, you perform a cover change and you reduce the damage minus 40% to damage received until opponent's attack ends, right? You also get a little bit of a damage inflicted buff right there, which is not, I mean, honestly, just that first part, right? That first part is what you really zone into, what you focus on. It's to the left and to the right. So if you are running like a purple unit, like right here, for example, this Super 17, if you're worried about him getting super attacked by a yellow unit by the name of Goten maybe, then you would just slot him in right next to this guy, right next to the Rildo, and you would go ahead and you would possibly just completely, like, almost negate that super attack, right, in terms of how much damage you take, right? I could just go ahead and do this as well, something like that, in that nature. That's why I think I think he could actually be a very important player on the field here for GT players. I actually do believe that this team is better than regeneration. You even see right here on the right hand side, this guy is rank 22, and he does have like a mixture as well of the Z tier plus S tier. He actually has 2 S tier units on here, right? Not only is he bringing in the Green Baby Vegeta, but he has opted in for this Sin Shenron as well, who does have the potential to heal once he does fall below 50% HP, and he does have somewhat of some debuffs here as well. Alright, so lastly, we actually have Frieza Force. So we actually have a couple options here, right? So we're getting more into where the Z tier units are covering a little bit more bases. People are like experimenting a little bit more. You're seeing a lot more of the Z tier slash S tier mixes. I still think the full Z tier is the way to go though. Like, to be completely transparent with you guys, even with our regeneration team that we're going to be using, we're only going to be using the S tier unit on a specific fight where we have boot, where we're going against boot tanks, right? But so we have Frieza Force right here, and no one really stands out to me here except for this purple Ginyu, right? This purple Ginyu right here, just because he does buff the tag Ginyu Force. You do see multiple Ginyu Force units on here, right, including like the Frieza Force, but he also, at the start of the turn, he restores his own health by 2% every turn. Again, this is very important. I think this is like the best ability you can have for these really mediocre low tier units, right, is having that self-sustain with the health restoration right there. Other than that, I guess you do have 2 sparkings on here in the form of the green Vegeta and in the form of the green Captain Ginyu, but not all of the, like I said before, there is a little bit of a split right here. If you go into S here, you are using you're using 3 units right here from S tier. Not necessarily all the time, right? Because 2 can be in backup, but there's always going to be 1 S tier unit amongst your Z tier units here. So you guys do need to be very aware of that, because that might affect your route, right? Because of that, it might affect like you wanting to go for a more difficult stage. Right, so lastly, we have the new units of Broly right here, right? Ultra Broly. So I assume that his ToP kit is going to be insane. We're going to fully limit break him right here. ToP stats, Friendship Rank 1, Key Restore Speed 2,533, which is actually pretty good considering that could probably jump up to 2,640 something right here, right? He does have the ultimates. He has the blue card. Let's go ahead. Oh my god, yeah, look at this. At the start of the battle, 80% to damage inflicted, minus 20% to damage, 130 to key recovery. Wow. And you apply the buff effect, restores 20% of damage, so he heals himself as well. At the start of the battle, if there's attack Saiyan, enemy remaining multi-target, 10% to own special move gauge, and inflicts all enemies with the attribute downgrade, plus 10% to strike damage received. All enemies, huh? The start of the battle, if there is an enemy character Goku remaining, another 10% to special move gauge, and you automatically upgrade. You know how many Gokus there are in the game? Like, this is phenomenal. That's actually crazy. He does have a cover change, but is health restricted. Started the second turn, self plus 15% to next strike, special move, and ultimate arts damage inflicted. At the start of the second turn, inflicts can attack. On special move arts, inflicts can attack. Oh my god, dude, yeah, he's really good. At the start of the battle, 5% to ultimate damage inflicted, and then he gets the per allied episode sagas from the movies, 5% to damage inflicted, plus key recovery. This, on attack against unfavorable elements, he gets another 40% to damage inflicted here as well. So the thing is, though, is that, will this guy ever be put into Z tier? That is the real question right here, right? Will he ever get put into Z tier, or he's like, there's no really point in him being this damn good? You know, honestly, I stand a little bit corrected. I thought he was going to immediately get put into C tier, but he's actually in A tier, so he's still getting like a 5% bonus, which is alright, but it's still, I don't know if that's significant enough for you guys to actually warrant running him, right? It might, though, because, I mean, you go for S tier, it's 10%, and this is all the way up to 20%. That's not that bad, right? Considering that the other Ultras are just locked into C tier right now. So, I guess you can go ahead and take it with a grain of salt. Alright, but that being said, that's going to go ahead and wrap it up for today's video. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, definitely let me know in the comments down below. Make sure you guys are going, if you guys have already locked in your team, you guys already know what team you're going to be running. I still suggest waiting. Like at least a week, right? Making sure you're getting all your friendship ranks up. Make sure you guys are just doing the let's fight events and stuff like that, all of that good stuff, and kind of just seeing how the leaderboard moves, right? Because a lot of these people could just be immediately dying off of rip, because I noticed that was an issue with a lot of people. I had a lot of people last season tell me like, hey Azdeek, like I was able to secure the 1000 CC, but I was not able to finish the second boss, right? That's how many times they died. So they did miss out on 300 CC right here, which is not what we want overall. You want to get as much CC as you possibly can juice from ToP, right? So you, of course, I do think dying is meta, but you don't want to die too much, to which you do restrict yourself from getting that 300 CC as well. With that being said, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Later.